not the two of us. This is us. This and them. The video game. There's them. This is them.
Don't get mad at me. Don't get mad at me.
The us. You know what I'm trying to say. Them and us. The one of us.
It's a feat.
The them. The theys. What is it?
Not true, bestie.
Last of Us.
The Last of Us. You knew what I was saying.
Yeah, we all did.
But I think we're gonna transition to what I think is our last show here. And
The last show.
The last of
The
Last of Us? The last of Us for a little while, that is.
The last of Us for like the last the last of Us for the last I don't know, like 2-3 years probably.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts because I just watched it a couple hours ago, so it's still pretty fresh in my mind. I haven't heard a lot of other opinions on it. I still haven't finished the game. I wanted to finish up to this point in the game, and I didn't. I just hadn't found time. But I feel like I remember a lot of this stuff, at least the like general gist of what happened in the games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You told me you weren't the biggest fan of this episode, right?
Yeah. And the more that it's sat, the more I've been nitpicking it, oddly enough. Compliment sandwich here. Let's start with some positives. At number 1, Shimmer lives. So that is, that's all I needed. It avoids a bad score just because of that. 10 out of 10 just for the fact that Shimmer lives.
I wonder why. I'm very curious about that. Like, I wonder if HBO had like a no animal cruelty rule, because there's also one of the dogs that gets brutally murdered in the game. That
I actually just saw that clip. Somebody posted, and I was like, oh, interesting. But isn't that more so part of Abby's story?
I don't remember. Like, I know there's several parts of the game where like they send their attack dogs after you.
Yeah.
And you don't have to kill them, but it's going to be a pain in the butt if you don't. It's going to be really hard because they will sniff you out. Like, you can sneak around, but those dogs are still going to find you, so you still kind of have to take them out. It kind of forces you to a certain point. So it's interesting that they were like, we can bash someone's head in, we can torture someone's guts can slide out of their body, but no animal cruelty. And honestly, I respect the hell out of that.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. Yes. No horses nor dogs were harmed in the making of this.
I just hope he
TV
doesn't
show.
starve. I hope Shimmer doesn't like starve.
Well, I mean, Jesse said that. In case you care, Shimmer's fine. By the way.
Yeah.
So.
But for how long?
I don't know. But yeah, I'm glad Shimmer's okay. But the episode itself stressed me the heck out, dude. Like, it really did. It number 1 made me want to go actually play the game. Number 2, it hit all the points that I didn't want it to hit. As far as it made this season feel like the first half of a story, or really, now that we've learned, the first third of a story. So it doesn't necessarily even stand on its own. Like, yes, we kind of had that idea going into it. Like, we were speculating on it throughout the whole season. It's okay. The more we progress through season 2, the less we heard and saw of Abby, the more focus it was just on Ellie's journey. Seattle days 1 through 3. Cool. That's just like they do it in the games. As far as I understand, you start with, the 3 days of Ellie going through things, then you swap gears and get Abby's side of the story, then you continue with the confrontation. And that seems like what they're going to do next season, and then in season 4, apparently, that has kind of sort of been confirmed as well. So I don't love when a story feels incomplete. Like, I think 7 episodes is a really weird choice, especially since last season was 10, I think, or like 9 or 10. Yeah, like last season felt like a full complete story. It had a beginning, a middle, and an end. This season can be broken down into a few parts, right? So you have the kind of prelude, the calm before the storm with episode 1. Episode 2 is Joel's death, the catalyst for everything. Episode 3 is kind of the recovery, figure out how we move forward from here. Episodes 4 and 5 were Seattle Days 1 and 2. Episode 6 was our big flashback episode, which, again, I still feel like it should have been kind of spread out throughout the season to give us an extra episode. But I see why they did it the way that they did. And then this final episode, Day 3, felt so rushed and all over the place. It really did. Like, it was moving at a breakneck pace, and I think that is my biggest issue of the season. Like, the pacing just felt off. Like, I think if they went with the same pace that they did at the beginning of the season, I would have been okay with it, because they let the story sit and simmer. We got a whole episode of setting up why this season is going to be the way that it is. We got a whole episode focusing on, the death of Joel. We got a whole episode focusing on the fallout of the death of Joel. And then we crammed a whole day's worth of adventures into 3 50-minute episodes, which in some ways makes sense, but you can play the game for like probably 10 hours to get through those 3 days, right? Like, the game is 30 hours long.
I think that's also my biggest issue. I did love this season. I think this season is very close to being a perfect season for me. But there are nitpicks, and I do think it does rely in there. I think it does rely on the pacing of the season and how it's structured. And I don't even necessarily know how to fix it, because so much of that I don't think is easy to adapt in here, right? So much of the game is, and we've talked about this previously, rotting around, finding certain items, chilling out. And I think like it is hard to adapt that into live action, or, into a TV show formula without having filler, because a lot of that is quote unquote filler, right? At least that's how it would be perceived. So I think it's hard to, Ronan, if you want to link, let me know, buddy. I know your stream's about to start, so you don't have to, but I think it's like, I don't know how you fix that pacing problem necessarily.
Yeah. And so again, I've been watching this whole season with my dad, who we are both in the same boat as we've not played the games. We've seen clips. We've talked to my brother, who is the big Last of Us fan in the family. He's played both the games extensively. He knows all the lore, and we're being influenced by him in some ways, as he is more so a game purist as far as the story goes. However, what I kind of came to realize is, while the show is intended really to please the fans of the game, but also to bring in new fans that would never play it because it's a game. So you have to cater to both of those audiences very carefully. And I feel like, as an audience member that doesn't know the ins and outs of the games, I'm missing so much story on certain things, but not necessarily in a good way. Like, I know that the game plays into the mystery of certain things, and we kind of discussed this last episode of, they gave us more of kind of Abby's story very, very early on to kind of set the stage with her and that sort of thing, where in the game that they leave it up to a mystery as far as why Abby's after Joel in the beginning until later on. Yet the only reason I know about that is because I've talked to people that have played the games, or I've gone and looked at kind of how the games go. But again, from this perspective of watching it, of watching it without having that background, I feel like I'm missing out on things. And then the other side of that equation is that people who have played the games, they're at a point where they're dissatisfied as well because it's not necessarily following the game story as closely as they would have liked. And again, it's an adaptation. It's supposed to be different. It's supposed to tell the story in a new and unique way, take certain liberties, change certain things that the creatives didn't necessarily like when they made the game. But it feels like this odd tug of war where we stay very faithful to the games and the background and the backstory in certain aspects. And then in other parts, we change it completely. Like looking at how Ellie acts in the game versus in the show are two complete, like she could be a completely different character. From what I understand in the game, she's much more so like hell-bent on revenge, kind of very much so single-minded as far as I'm going after Abby, that sort of thing, versus now in the show, you get a lot more downtime. You have her kind of conflicted and not necessarily sure of why she's out there doing what she's doing. She's not as threatening, I feel like, either. And obviously that's a choice for the show, and they need to go in on that. But then you switch it up there, and then she becomes very menacing and very threatening and very much so like, I'll kill anybody who gets in my way sort of thing. But they just keep going back and forth with it. And I can't ever, I guess, sit with the decision that they've made because it feels like they keep going back and forth on it. And it's just an odd spot, I feel like. Give me some more perspective as far as from somebody who has played the games. Like, how does that feel for you?
I'm kind of split on it because I really liked, and Ronan, I want to hear your perspective on this a little bit, who knows the games more than me.
Yeah.
But like, I've loved the more transitional journey, because I think you kind of start game 2 originally and she's already kind of that more darkened, that more edgy character. I've liked the journey of the season of them building up to that, to slowly seeing her up until last week's episode, where that moment where she's like, oh, this is the version of the game now. This is the version that we knew from the games, and we've seen that transformation. But I will say, I think this episode, just a little bit for me, does flip-flop a little bit in that characterization. It feels like she kind of goes back and forth a little bit. And I feel like maybe there could have been a smoother transition, but maybe it's just because we don't... I don't know, maybe it's just because we haven't seen this version of Ellie yet. Like, I had a friend that was kind of upset about the episode because he said, well, I think Ellie is super unlikable and she's being very stupid this episode. I'm like, yeah, but I think that's the point. I think she is stupid this episode. She's making very stupid. She's not thinking with her head. She's thinking with her heart, not her head. She's making very stupid decisions. Ronan, someone who knows the character way better than me, who's played these games way more than me.
Yes, enlighten us,
How did
please.
this final episode work for you? Did you like what they did with Ellie this season?
It's so interesting because I stand with Bella Ramsey performance as Ellie.
Yeah.
Though I understand the constructive critiques people have with this new interpretation of Ellie now that she's older now, and Bella has played older, even though she is 19, but they are 19. But what I find intriguing is that it's almost like an inverse from the game. In the game, because you are on the DualShock, you are on the stick. The passage through each of the first 3 days in Seattle, it's boiling. You're in there with Ellie in the mindset of just like, you got to get these people out of the way. Damn them for what they did to Joel. And what's fascinating that I found very intriguing, which is what I love about adaptation, especially when one is good, and it doesn't, for me, hurt the previous iteration.
No,
it gives a new perspective. Ellie in the show is way more. I'm not trying to say Ashley's Ellie didn't care about Dina in the game. Of course she cared for her with all her breath. But I love how Ellie in the show takes at moments consideration. What are we doing? Should we do this? Especially after finding out that Dina's pregnant. Especially after the day and a half they spent together like that, it's just like, what are we doing? And so I appreciated that, being like, whoa, this is different than the game, if you will. But then again, in the game, I was William Wallace, and Ellie was there with me. We were like, we're gonna get the British. I took it as a silver lining that like I can enjoy two different iterations of the same characters and the same world that I love so much.
Agreed.
The perfect example I can only come up with right now is last week's episode, the porch scene. Very similar and yet different. I've told and if you guys have heard what me say, that like the game is more subtle in a lot of ways, especially with emotion, connectivity, gestures. The game has more quote unquote nuance. But with the show, you have that time to like lay it out all on the line, whether you want to express yourself or if you want to just swallow what your heart is saying or what your mind is saying, and you go with your guts. Like we're saying about the scene with the kid, with the certified kid. Like, yo, we just let that kid take it away and I understood where Ellie was coming from the heart. But I love that my mindset of Jesse was just like, yo, Dina's pregnant. Tommy's out there. This is not our fucking war. And by the way, the kid you wanted to save, their folks were willing to like
kill you. Yeah.
Kill you and like think about that for a sec. And so I like the dynamic between Jesse and Ellie because it was mind versus heart. And the need of the many outweighed the needs of the few or the one. But I like the episode. Doesn't make right now. I've sat with it for 24 hours. It doesn't make my top 3 or 4 episodes of the season.
Yeah.
But and again, it's a choice. 50 minutes. They covered a lot of time. You took away gameplay still. It's a lot of like, okay, the stakes of Jesse now being the dad. The fact that like you got to find the boat, and then the paths, changing. Jesse's like, I really hope you make it, and her going the route what she does with Mel and Owen. So I liked it, but I'm very curious to see as a whole it'll play out better once we finish season 3 and maybe even season 4 if that happens to go that route.
Yeah, I want to go back a little bit, Tazz, because you talked about how you don't like the ending because you don't like open-ended stuff. And I was curious. I wouldn't
necessarily say open-ended stuff, but things that
incomplete.
End in a way that doesn't feel satisfying. Like, I feel like if we had gotten more leading up to this ending, I would have liked the end of the season more. Like, I don't have a problem with where we end the season, but just some of the journey in the middle doesn't sit right with me. Like, as far as how did we get from where we started to where we ended?
Right. I was curious about that because we had this conversation, was it 2023, with Across the Spider-Verse?
Yes.
Like you sent me that message and like you said you wanted to do the stream. I was like, awesome. And then you sent it me like, yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I was like, what are you talking about? And then like once you broke that down for me, I was like, okay, I can understand that not sitting well with you. You not liking a part 1 to a 2-part story. But I also don't know how you, in this case, I don't know how you do it any other way, right?
I do.
Okay.
You make this all one season. This is the mid-season finale in my mind of season 2. You know what I mean? Is they now have this 4-season plan. Not necessarily a 22 episode season. I think seasons 2 and 3 should be 1 episode. So like that would be like a 12 to 15 episode season, right? Is you somehow combine the Ellie story and the Abby story into 1 season, and then this can still be, because from what I understand is we're going to obviously come back to this confrontation by the end of Abby's story in season 3. So we get back to this same point at the end of this season, at the end of next season. So why not just combine everything into 1 season? I know that you're trying to cover up what happens. In my mind, I like how, yes, we spend our time with Ellie. We're going to spend our time with Abby. But just, I feel like I've seen half of a story here, and having to wait all that time to then play, or to then see the other half of the story when you're playing the game, you play 7 to 10 hours as Ellie, then you go right into playing the 7 to 10 hours as Abby, and then you see how those stories converge. Where in here, it's a different medium, and I see how they experimented with telling the story in different ways, telling things out of order. We're going back to the beginning, we're going back to day one, but we're seeing it from Abby's perspective starting next season. But wouldn't that have been a lot more impactful if, again, say maybe this is episode, or even say they somehow told this whole story in 5 episodes, right? This is the end of episode 5, and then we've got 5 more episodes to tell that story. In a lot of ways, I would much rather them combine it all into one season rather than give us a short season where it feels like not a lot happened, or like we rushed through it just to get to this end so that we can tell the other half of the story that we might rush through again to get to this end, and then finally give us that ending. And if it, in retrospect, all put together feel like a good cohesive product, then great. But we're not watching it as a binge. We're watching it as a weekly release. So it has to has to feel good in that weekly release schedule. But again, that's just my opinion. I felt very much so like I was moving at a breakneck pace this episode just to finish the story, where like we didn't go through things in a very natural way. Like I felt like they had an idea of where they wanted to end this season. They only had 7 episodes to do so, and I felt like we had a big pause, a big break from the action with last week's episode, given it was a flashback, and then we had to just rush to the finale, or rush through the finale. I don't think it's necessarily the amount of episodes, I think it's what you do with the episodes. Like, I feel like in a lot of ways, as fast as some of these things were, there were also a lot of things that oddly lingered for too long. Like, again, I'm sure it matters, but like, say in this finale, why did we have 5 minutes of Ellie going to Scarface Island only for kind of nothing to happen, and it just feel like an odd detour? Like, again, I know it matters, but it felt out of place to me. Like, I felt like, okay, we could have gotten more with Tommy, or we could have gotten more with Jesse, or we could have gotten a different interaction instead of that scene. Like, it felt like it was oddly placed, and like if somebody ripped it out of the episode, it wouldn't have changed where the episode ends. Like, that's one of those scenes where you're like, okay, maybe it's a deleted scene, you see it on the cutting room floor, you're like, oh, it's kind of cool, whatever, but it doesn't necessarily impact the overall story.
I was going to ask you this, like this to you, Ronan, because that's not in the game, right? That doesn't happen. That happens to another character, right?
Yeah, so I can confirm that that doesn't happen to Ellie. Ellie does confront the Seraphites in different manners, but not strung up, Lynch style. But what I find fascinating is that they're leaning into that aspect of Ellie perspective and then another character's perspective, and that kind of angle kind of bugged me in the game, because I'm like, oh, I know this story. I know you're the two sides of the same coin. Okay. So that's why I think they chose to do that. And what I'm doing the math right now. I'm like, there's a whole battle stuff that we didn't get from Ellie. That as a gamer, I was like, oh, that would have been fun just to see it and change whatnot. And what I found weird, and I appreciate Tazz's perspective, because I have a friend on my podcast. I'm pretty sure he's going to bring it up when we do it in a little bit. Of like, we should have had more episodes, because even though we're getting the weekly release, which is the closest the non-gamers get to experiencing the time it took for us to play through it, you need to feel the mileage of being away from Jackson and what that means to be in Seattle,
right?
And especially what that does to these characters and whatnot. I think from the get-go, me and my crew were like, they're gonna end it with her saying, "And you wasted it." We from the get-go were like, that's if we're gonna get 7 episodes, if that's all we get, that's where we would end it. People might not dig it, but that's where we would get it. And I look at it now, and I'm like, that's one way to do it, if you're gonna spend seasons trying to tell the story. But to Tazz's perspective, I like that. You know what? They could have done 12, maybe 14 episodes season,
Right. Tell it
and
all.
then do first half Ellie and then second half Abby, or mingle in between.
Yeah.
Because to this day, I'll say it. I love Naughty Dog in that, but like the second half of part 2, god damn it, that pacing is, whoo, it's a
Right.
commitment. And
Yeah.
what I found intriguing is that I was wondering if they were taking into consideration that, like, oh, is the season's ratings viewership going to go down once we shift perspectives? And
Yeah.
how does that
Well,
compare if we capture that into a whole season, and
It-
then you move into another season? Which I know you're going to ask me now, what does that mean for season 3? And it's just like, well, welcome to part 2. This is the stress I had to go through for that
Yeah.
weekend playing the game.
it is.
well,
Go ahead.
go
Tazz,
ahead.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, you go ahead.
Like
Go ahead.
it is arguably one of the most ballsy thing I have ever seen in a TV show. It is one of the most risky things. Like me and Taz said early on, they're not going to do that. They're clearly going to do both the season and be this like fluid thing. But I respect it so much. Having
I do too.
and
And-
switch perspective. That I don't think that's ever really been done outside of like an anthology series.
Yeah.
To be like, we have your lead in season 1, we kill that guy off in season 2, we have a new lead, and at the end of season 2 we get a completely different lead for season 3, and then to eventually go back in season 4. That's never been done, not to my knowledge, not that I can think of. That is insane.
Yeah.
That felt like Spider-Verse moment of like, let's take it back one last
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
to me, I felt the excitement as a fan of the franchise, but the dread of like, oh, this we gotta get through this half. And to me, it was the killer of hearing the beats of the drums, and then Seattle, day one.
Day one.
And it's just like,
Yeah.
And I will say,
jokingly, I
like, the
tell my
last,
friends, I might have to get drunk for season 3 just to get through it because my perspective on stuff. But go ahead, Tazz.
no, like those last 5 minutes of that episode were probably the strongest of the entire episode. I think, and in a weird way, I might be part of the unpopular opinion here, and I did see some people talking about this. There is a chance that season 3 ends up being better than season 2, and I might connect with Abby a lot more than I did with Ellie this season. Like, I feel like we didn't learn a ton, and we didn't grow or change a ton. Like, I feel like she still has that same moral dilemma that she had before she left Jackson. Like, I think it's still like okay, I'm going after these people. Should I really be going after them because I know what Joel did, but I need to get, avenge Joel's death, that sort of thing. And then she kind of backtracks on herself at the end, and she's like, oh, I know I killed your friends, but please don't kill my friends. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Like, again, from what I've seen, that is not at all how Game Ellie would have acted. She seemed to, again, be a one-woman army that did not take anything from anyone and would just obliterate anybody in her path and not apologize for it. And I think that was another big element that was missing. Like, she was training a lot at the beginning of the season and things like that, and she was relegated to running around scared with a handgun the whole time, when game version is, again, a Terminator, basically. As silly as it sounds, she did accidentally kill these people. Like, she didn't go into it intending to, wherein I saw the clips in the games. I saw how it played out there, and she committed to the bit a lot more. She was a lot more intimidating. She's like, pulls out the map, show me where Abby is, that sort of thing. There's an actual little scuffle, a little fight, versus like, okay, quick reaction, I'm gonna shoot and somehow get a collateral. Like, that's not, that's a little ridiculous. And even when Abby comes into the theater, again, what I saw, game versus show, show, she throws her gun away immediately, completely defenseless. In the show, she comes out, she's still, or in the game, sorry, she comes out, she's still holding the gun until she has to put it down. Like, it just, there's a slight little disconnect there. And I see the perspective. I see why they're doing that. I think they're trying to make Ellie a little bit more redeemable and likable in the show. But it's, to me, making her seem like a little bit of a pushover in the show, right? Like, she, it's weird. It's like, at that point, how did she survive for 3 days in Seattle doing all this dumb stuff? Like, got in a boat, hit the big wave, ended up on Scar Island. Like, how it seems like plot armor at that point versus, again, to me in the game, it seems a lot more believable. On a mission, one person firing squad, that sort of thing. It just, it's interesting. And one other thing too, that I could be wrong about, and Ronan, I want you to tell me if this is true or not, but in the game, is it correct that when, or after Ellie kills Abby's two friends there, looking for Abby with the map and everything, when Tommy comes out to rescue her, comfort her, whatever, in the game, do you slightly hear like a distorted version of Joel's voice and then it fades into Tommy's voice? Is that correct? I feel like I saw that potentially.
That's good. That's a good question.
And then that didn't happen in the show.
It might have. I have to go back. Listen, I've told you guys, I've only played the game 1.5 times, maybe 2 at most, because it really over. But like, yeah, and like, they might have done that. Yeah. But in order to, instead of the audio, what they did was that they made Tommy appear very much like Joel.
Right.
When Joel helped her out in the game with David. Mm-hmm. I was like, Ellie, it's me. And then, even how he holded her was very much the way Joel holded her in season 1 and in the game. And he looked at what she did, and he looked at it, and it wasn't a killer. It was, in my opinion, his niece. So he's like, okay, no, forget it. Come on. And so they might have done the audio thing. I have to go back and look at it. But if they did, and they switched it off for this, it worked for me, because that look was Uncle Tommy. That wasn't a brother. That wasn't a father. That was Uncle Tommy doing his best to make sure, like, listen, it's not your fault, and whatnot. There's a lot of stuff of that they do, and they switch up. That, again, I think the story is playing out better for me in the show, but it's a different dynamic between what the characters are doing in the show in comparison to what the characters did in the game. And it's funky, man, because, how do I put it this way? It's a different dynamic when you're controlling a character and you feel that rage. And what I find fascinating from the show is that, like, Ellie keeps trying to be at moments Joel. And I find it very intriguing when she does get a moment of peace and thinks about him. There is the beauty, and then it just goes back to the dread of just killing and whatnot.
Right.
Which is why, in the game, she's more colder, in my opinion. But what I appreciate that the show has done up to that point, and they did it really, they started in season 1, is that Ellie is fascinated with the violence. Like, I'll never forget it. Season 1, when they go to find some stuff, and Joel's loading up the truck with gas. She finds an infected. She takes out her switchblade knife and just pokes at him and just looks at the cut in one eye. And I was just like, I don't remember that from the game. That's intriguing as hell.
And there's that. There's a scene last episode with her with the dreams and being obsessed with the moths and death, and it's like I think there's several layers to that. As some of it is what's going to happen with Joel, what's happened to her in the past. Like you just said, she's always been a little bit intrigued by that darker side. And I think Joel's death has given her permission to unlock that side of her. And I really liked her line this week with Dina, where it's like, where she's like, I hated how much, I hated how easy it was for me to go there, and how much I didn't really regret doing it. Like, I thought that stuff was fascinating.
Yeah, I think she's finally she got a moment to think of like what Joe tried teaching her and what Dina has now brought to her life, of like so much beauty and like perspective of thinking about stuff before you actually act on it. And what happens now that after you act on it and you think about what you've done. Because probably you could say up to that point, Ellie had never thought about her actions past acting on them. And this was a watershed moment where she was like, man, I made her talk. And not only did I end it, I left her there that way.
And in some ways, too, I feel like leaving her there to get infected was worse than putting her out of her misery and killing her.
They took away the line away from the show, but in the game, she does say to Nora, tell me where she is, and I can make this quick, or I can make this so much worse.
Yeah.
I'll defend Ellie on this perspective. She told all of them who were there watching Abby doing what she did, and no one batted an eye except for Owen. And then even when Ellie was there, no one batted an eye.
Yeah.
She kept saying, just tell me where Abby is. And, the first thing that comes to mind is Nora and Tatiana, or Tati, or whatever her name is, did it brilliantly, where she says, I'm sorry you had to watch that. No one should have gone through that. But then quickly goes back to that bitch got what it deserved. And it's like, after that point, hey, you got
all bets are off. All bets are off. So
same thing with Owen. When he went for the gun, I'm like, what the f*** are you doing, dude?
Yeah.
Like you have a pregnant one right there. You really want to play a Mexican standoff right now? Just like,
And I think that too, okay, full circle, right? It is, I think the ultimate perspective and the ultimate point of the show is to show that everybody operates in shades of gray. Nobody is all good and nobody is all bad, and we're going to get that next season. And again, I think in a lot of ways, I might end up really... I'm excited, actually, to see more of Abby's side of things, because I have a little bit of that teased as far as what I've seen, but it seems like the game really does try to get you to sympathize with her a lot. And it really shows you is like everybody's kind of a victim of the circumstances that they're in. Is just like Abby's friends and Ellie's friends just got in the middle of this crazy beef between these two people because Joel made a split-second hasty decision, which again, I still don't think necessarily was the wrong choice. But again, it shows that everybody's decisions have consequences. Joel's decision to save Ellie had consequences, which led to his own death. Joel's death has consequences because now you have ignited this spark inside of Ellie that has always been there, her kind of lust for violence. And now Abby has ignited that. And Ellie has gone on this journey now where she kind of fully gives into the dark side, or to reference Dexter, her dark passenger. And now we are at a point where Ellie has become just as bad as Abby, wherein she's now killed Abby's friends just to get to her, wherein Abby caused a catastrophe in Jackson by awakening all of the infected there, destroying the town, causing the deaths of I don't know how many people, just to kill one man. So, again, as somebody who has not fully played the games, I feel like we're going to come to a point where they're going to both be very much so confrontational. You took everything from me. No, you took everything from me. You're bad. No, you're bad. Oh, wait, we're just as bad as each other. If we kill each other, we're just continuing with that cycle of violence. We've gone so far. I think we've got to just come to a mutual agreement and understanding. you've done some stuff that you're not proud of. I've done some stuff that I'm not proud of, but we're both trying to make the world a better place and atone for those mistakes that we've made. Maybe I shouldn't have killed Joel. Maybe I shouldn't have come to Seattle on a rage mission and killed your friends. All right, cool. We're never going to be friends, but we can go our separate ways. And I think that ultimately that's kind of where we're going to go. But again, I could be wrong, and they've already changed a lot of things from the games, it seems like. And I think, if nothing else, this shows that I actually did enjoy the show. I have a lot of nitpicks, but I really did enjoy it. I'm excited to go fully play the games and actually sit down and really see this story. I think, too, the show is certainly, while yes, it's an ode to the games and an homage to the story that created the show, but in a lot of ways, I still think it's very much so made for the general audience member. And I'd love to see that statistic, too, is how many people that are watching the show are fans of the game, and how many people are watching the show because it's a zombie show on HBO that had Pedro Pascal in it. Like, I feel like you're going to have a lot more people that are watching it for that reason versus people that are watching it because they're fans of the games. And again, as there's a big sect of the game community that is either specifically avoiding the show because it diverts from the game too much for them, or they're just not watching it because it's not the story that they enjoy, and I see the perspective on all ends. And like I said, again, I had a ton of nitpicks. I ended this season feeling like, okay, I don't necessarily love Ellie as much as I might have in the first season, but I think, again, like, to your credit, I think that that's kind of the point. But I'm excited to go into next season and see the other side of the story and see the other side of the coin and the other side of this equation and learn why I should sympathize with Abby.
Look, I'm really curious because I've always kind of liked Abby, but also that's from the perspective that, like, I knew Joel was going to die before I even started the games, before I even started the show. I knew that going in, and I knew there was going to be a divergence at some point. I knew that going in, so I feel like I went in with that open mind. I knew the destination before I started the journey, and I think that does help a little bit. And I feel like they're going to even, I imagine, like, coming on this season, I already kind of like Abby, or at least what Abby kind of stands for.
I
do
too, in a way.
Like by the end of episode 2, I'm like, I kind of get it. Like, yes, you shouldn't have done that, obviously, but, like, I get where she's coming from, where it's like, if we were watching, Ron's gonna shoot me inside the head. I know it. But
No.
Shoot you inside
the head. If we were watching any other show, she's our protagonist, right? Like, she is just on the level as, like, Rick Grimes would be, whereas, like, yes, she would be praised for her actions if we were watching a different thing. And I think that's what makes it so interesting. It's like, oh, it's all about perspective. It's all about perspective.
Yeah.
Ellie, like, if we were viewing this from her perspective, Ellie coming in here shooting a pregnant woman and her friends, like, she is an evil person.
So literally you could very much so frame it from Abby's perspective. Like, the daughter of the man who killed my father comes to my hometown, kills my friends, and wants to kill me. Like, from that if you look at it from that perspective again, or referencing the Star Wars side of things, that's the truth from a certain point of view.
Yeah, so. And I always tell folks that, like, to me, and again, it's perspective. That line from both the game and the show, we let you live, I let you live, and you wasted it. They're like, sure, yeah, but, like, I saw Kill Bill, and in Kill Bill, they completely, in my opinion, done it the best way, where, like, the bride kills, I forget her name. In front of her daughter.
Right,
in the
and
kitchen.
It's like, hey, if you want to come back and kill me later, go for it.
I'm ready.
Here.
Yeah. And it just, like, and I thought that was simple, in a f***ed up way, respectful and honest. And I was just like, it wasn't like, hey, I did the right thing. I'm not him. When I was like, no, you can torture a guy. He just shot you down the head quicker.
Right.
And so, like, that perspective plays a big hand. And, like, and I hope people also realize this, that like I respect and adore Laura Bailey. I fucking respect and adore Kaylin
So
Dever.
good. Yeah.
La quiero mucho. But Abby, that puta. Like there is
Valid. Yeah.
man, I'm telling you,
You
man,
are
like,
100% allowed to have that feeling. That's
Yeah.
like
But in a weird way too, I was kind of excited when she came back. I was like, finally.
it's
Like
yeah.
we've been waiting like 5 episodes. Like where the heck have you been for the last 5 episodes? But I guess
and
that's what next
There's
season's
a lot
about.
of fun things with her that I'm excited to see how they adapt it, and I'm excited to get there. Yeah.
y'all, the stuff they've added with the Seraphites and the wolf
Yeah. they're
is
doing a good
mind
job
bending
there.
to me. Like that, there's stuff that wasn't in the game that we got. Like the one scene with the little girl and her dad and teaching her all the whistles and with the hammer.
Right.
Like I remember seeing that hammer and like it flipped me off. It freaked me out because if you go back and watch the just the promo of the game for part 2,
Right.
that hammer comes up a lot, and it's just fascinating. And so like I'm gonna say this. You barely got a taste of Gustavo's new stuff. Gustavo Santaolalla, the composer, his new stuff for the second game. Wait till season 3, and then eventually where season 4 comes out, because there's some tracks that haven't been put out yet that like, ooh,
Yeah,
Ooh.
and I mean, I'd argue all around the season, most of the supporting characters are, if not better, done in such a different way that I loved. I'd argue better. Like I think Dina's better
Dina.
than the games. Jesse's better than the games. I have to replay it.
Jesse.
But Isaac,
Oh no.
Isaac, I feel like they've done a lot of cool things with him.
So much more. Oh.
Yeah, and
He seems
not
fun.
even
He
funny.
seems fun.
It's not even funny, guys. Like look at listen to Gianni. It bugged him how much they casted Jeffrey Wright, and we barely got shit with him in the game.
I
And
think
it's
that's
just,
why I
thank God for
don't
the show.
remember him inside the games, because like when he showed up, I was like, I know this is someone big, but it's not coming to me in the moment.
clicking.
So it's, yeah. I mean, you know, we're heading towards the end here. We're kind of running out of time a little bit, but I do want to ask about Jesse Tazz, because
Yeah.
you were spoiled about that, right? You did know
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, but okay, so here's the thing. Even if I wasn't spoiled about it, that is the biggest like foreshadowed thing throughout the entire episode. Like literally maybe
Yeah.
3 to 5 times. He was like, I'm going to be a dad. I can't die.
I'm gonna be a dad.
I didn't come all the way to Seattle just to die.
Yeah,
Hey,
that was
Ellie,
a
we
little
can't do that.
heavy-handed.
That's gonna kill us. Oh, like they very heavily hit
That's
you over the head
valid.
with, this is his last episode. He is going to die. This is his last episode. He is going to die.
Mhm.
Like, just in case you forgot it, Jesse's gonna die this
Yeah.
episode. But like the way he died was so dumb. I know it's exactly how he died in the game. But this guy who you've seen like kind of very tactically like sweep rooms and like, you know, check around and like figure out where people are, he hears gunshots in the next room and runs out the door without checking anything. Just runs out the front door and gets immediately blasted in the face. Like, how do you think that's going to end?
I get it, and like to me, what's fascinating is when I look at these shows, and when a character spends time who have their own moral and their own rules, and they spend a moment seeing a perspective of somebody else, like that moment before they go run up the aisle, he talks to Elliot like, maybe I wanted to leave you, maybe I was convinced. He's nope, I wasn't convinced, but in that moment he realized, yeah, I have my own rules, but I also know you well enough that like you're so stubborn that even if it was me in peril, you would burn this city to the ground just to go for me, and that means a lot to him as well. So that's why I think that, like, you know, again, Tommy, him being a very like mentor for him, and having that side of like, you know, yes, Jackson is a community, but we're a community as well. And so he probably like, again, he probably wasn't, again, like he wasn't thinking, he was going on heart.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have no idea when. And again, I love, you know, I get it. Shows have to do, you know, on the next week, on The Last of Us. In that video, they show the shot of him running up the aisle with Ellie. And as soon as I saw that, I was like,
Yeah.
no, they're gonna
Yeah,
see
because
him.
everybody was
Like,
talking about that, yeah.
Don't go through the door. I've seen
Yeah.
all
No, Jesse, don't run through that door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it had to be done, but I still think it's
Yeah.
quite ridiculous that that's how he dies. After all that he survived, he gets just straight up blasted by Abby. Yeah.
It is
Have fun
funny.
playing part 2, Taz.
It is funny
Yeah.
though, where like people was like, okay, maybe Joel won't die this time. He dies. Maybe Jesse won't die this time. He won't.
Dude, we've
Shimmer,
been like
though,
we've been
Shimmer's good to
hardcore
go.
coping. Yeah. Yeah.
You should have seen me when we stopped recording. How I would once in a while bring up Shimmer. Like, what about Shimmer? What about Shimmer? What about Shimmer? Like,
Shimmer is no longer a horse. Shimmer is absolutely 100% the goat.
Yeah. No, like I brought it up a couple episodes back when like he was supposed to die, and I was like, I don't know if I should bring this up. But Shimmer freaking dies, and he didn't, and I was like, what the hell? Is he good?
Shimmer MVP of the whole show. Better character than even Joel. No, I'm kidding.